friends, welcome back. So this video is the continuation of our Java interview series. So this is our second video of this series. So in this part, we will be covering basic concept of exception handling, enums, constructor chaining, object and variable initialization, marker interface, inner classes and garbage collection. So these are the basic concept that we are covering in this video. So let's start with our first question. So the first question is explain exception hierarchy. So what is the exception hierarchy? So as we all know that the parent class is our object class. So object class, then we have the throwable class. After the throwable we have error and exception, and then exception is further uh, classified in two part. One is unchecked exception and one is checked exception. So this is our exception class hierarchy. So let's move on to the next question. So here, what is the difference between final, finally and finalize in Java? So are the keywords, and these keywords are used for the different purpose. So the first one is the final, second finally and finalize. So the first difference is like when we declare a final keyword used to make a class or a variable unmodifiable. The next is finally. So finally block is used to execute default code in case of exception handling. Like in the exception handling we use try catch and then finally. So finally block will always executed in case of exception handling. The next thing is finalize. So finalize method is used before object is garbage collected. So finalize is a protected white finalize method, and in this method we can put any logic that we want to like execute before the object get garbage collected. So that's why this method is used, and finalize execute only once. So the second point is uh, it is used with the class method and variable. So for the final keyword it is used with the class method and variable name. Then the second is finally. So we can't use finally with any like variable or the class. This is just a method block. So here this keyword can not be used with class method and variable. This is just a block. And then the finalize, this keyword is used only with the finalize, means this keyword only is used with the methods. And the third point is like final can also be used with the local variables. So yeah, like final keyword can be used with the local variables. So these are the main difference between final, finally and finalize. Let's move on to the next question. So what is the difference between throw and throws? So both are the part of the exception. So what is the difference between throw and throws? So for the throw, point one, throw is used to explicitly throw an exception. So when we are to declare a new exception, then we use the throw keyword. And for throws is used to declare an exception, means within the method if we want to like just pass the exception, so then we just declare the exception with throws keyword. Then the second point is it can be declared as a below, like when we are throwing a new exception, so we can use this keyword throw and then just create an instance of the new exception. So throw new runtime exception, and inside that we can pass the message. And in case of throws is used with the method, like after the method as written here throws, and then just mention the name of the exception class. So here like in third point we cannot throw multiple exceptions. So when we are using throw keyword, we can throw an instance of new exception, like only one exception. We can't throw multiple exception, but in case of throws we can like declare multiple exception comma separated. And then the fourth point, throw an instance of exception. So that I mentioned that we using keyword throw we simply throw an instance of an exception, while throws the class exception, the name of the class. And for the throws, the last point is we can use try catch to handle the throws exception. So for the throws exception we can use try catch, and inside that we can handle the throws exception. So these are the difference between throw and throws. Let's move on to the next question. So difference between checked and unchecked exception. So checked exception are mandatory to handle while unchecked are not. So here you can see like the first point, checked exception are compile time exception, while unchecked exception are runtime exception. So why compile time? Because if we don't handle the checked exception, it will give a compiler error. That's why it's a compile time exception. The second point, we can create checked exception by extending exception class, while for the unchecked exception we can extend the runtime exception class. The third point is checked exception are mandatory to handle, that I have already mentioned, and unchecked exception are not mandatory to handle. And for the example of checked exception are like IO exception, file not found exception, and socket exception, while unchecked exception are null pointer exception, illegal argument exception. So these are the difference between checked and unchecked exception. Let's move on to the next question. See here we have written a code for handling an exception. This is in try catch block, and also we have written the finally block. So in this method, when we are returning from a method, so how the return will execute when the finally is there. We know that finally will always get executed. So that's why in this method the return will be the 3. Like in the finally block will execute and it will return the 3. So let's move to the next question. So here like how to declare constants. So here you can see like we can define a constant using public static and of course the using final keyword. So this is the combination like public static final int constant equal to 10. So here we have defined a constant value 10 using the public static final keyword. And there is a one point to remember here, like when we are declaring constant, so the sequence of static and final keyword doesn't matter. So here we can define like public static final as well as public final static. So here we can define the constants. So but yeah, like if we have to declare multiple constant, then we have to declare multiple constant explicitly. But there is a one way where we can define a group of constant using enum. So our next question is based on enum. So here you can see what is enum. So enum is a way to declare group of constant, like a multiple constant can be defined by a single enum. So here we have created a one enum week, and inside that we have defined these constant values like amount due with the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like this. There are few points to remember about the enum. So here like enum can be declared inside the class or outside the class, but we can't declare enum inside the method. And the second point is like enum declare outside the class. So there are some constraint when we are declaring enum outside the class. So like that enum should not be marked as static, final, abstract, protected or private. So obviously private and protected doesn't mean like if you are declaring a constant value, so there is no need to declare them as a private or protected, that will be a meaningless. And similarly the enums are the constant value, so there is no need to declare them as a static, final. Even the final and static are like enums are by default static and final as they are the constant value, so there is no need of explicit declaration. Then the third point is enum declare inside the class. So what are the constant when we are declaring enum inside the class? So when we are declaring enum inside the class, that enum should not be final or abstract, so we can't declare them as a final or abstract. Then the fourth point is enum can contain constructor. So like the classes enum can contain constructor, method, variables and constant class bodies. And the fifth point is enum constructor can never be invoked directly. They get invoked directly when an enum is initialized. And the next point is enum can't extend any other class. Why? Because enum implicitly extend java.lang.enum. So that's why they can't extend any another class, because Java doesn't support multiple inheritance. So that's why they can extend only one, which is the enum, and by default they are extending that. Now the seventh point is enum can have abstract method. So how the enum have abstract method? So let's see this in our next question. So how to declare abstract method in a enum? So in the last line of this question, here you can see public abstract int getDays. So here we are declaring an abstract method within the enum. But there is a constraint when we are declaring an abstract method within the enum. So like we have to provide the implementation of that abstract method as well. Otherwise it will give the compile time error. So in this example, we have defined a public abstract int getDays abstract method, and we are providing the implementation of that within the enum. Like here you can see this is the implementation, like the first enum values, the second and third. So all the implementation are there. So this is the way how to declare abstract method within the enum. Let's move to the next question. So why Java doesn't support multiple inheritance? So again a basic question regarding to inheritance. So Java doesn't support multiple inheritance to avoid diamond problem. What is the diamond problem? So in this diagram you can see like there is a class P having method 1, and there are class A and class B which is extending the class P and having the same method 1 and method 1 in both the classes. Basically they are overriding the method 1. Now the class C extends A and B. Like suppose it support multiple inheritance and class C is extending A and B. In that scenario, how JVM know that which method should be override? Like either the class A or the class B. So that's why it's create an ambiguity. So to avoid this ambiguity, Java doesn't support multiple inheritance. So here one point to remember, like we can implement multiple interface in the Java. So then again there is ambiguity problem created. Like if we are implementing two interface and both the interface have the same constant declaration for that variable, it will give the ambiguity error. So that is the that's all about the multiple inheritance. Let's move to the next question. So what is constructor, and explain type of constructor. So constructor is like whenever we are creating the instance of any class, then the default constructor get initialized, and like if the class have parameterized constructor, then we need to call that constructor explicitly. So based on the parameter, there are two type of constructor, like default constructor and parameterized constructor. There are a few points to remember about the constructor. So the first point is like if no constructor is defined in the class, then the default constructor will be executed. But if we have parameterized constructor, then this should be called explicitly. So that is the point one. The second point is like to call the superclass constructor, we can use the super keyword. And if we want to execute another constructor within the class, then we have to use this keyword. This keyword should be the first statement in the constructor. Like if we write something else in the constructor and then write the super or this keyword, then it will give the compiled error. So that's why this keyword should be the first. Then the next point is constructor chaining. So how the constructor chaining occurs? So this is the basically the part of inheritance. Be any number of classes in the inheritance chain, and every constructor calls up the chain till the class at the super parent is reached. This is called the constructor chaining. And the next point is if we add return type or a void into a constructor, then what will happen? Like if we add a return type or a void into the constructor, then that constructor will automatically convert to a method. Like it will not be a constructor anymore, and there will not be any compiler error. But yeah, like if we add a static keyword in the constructor, then it will give a compile time error, because constructor is always uh, associated with the instance. Like whenever we are creating the instance, the constructor get called, and if we are declaring as a static, then it will associate with the class. So that's why it will give the compile time error. So this is about the constructor and constructor chaining. Moving to the next question. So what is the sequence of initialization of instance, static variable and constructor? Like whenever we are initializing the object of a class, then how the variable and the block will be initialized. Say in this example we can see, like whenever we are creating the object of a parent class and then we are calling this instance method, then first, like whenever the class load, is static variable and static block will be initialized. And after that, whenever we are creating the instance of that class, then the instance variable and instance block will be initialized. So in this sequence here you can see that first the static block will be executed, then the second instance block will be executed, and at the and then the constructor will be executed. So in this example we can see. So let's move to the next question. What is typecasting? So typecasting is basically converting one kind of object into another kind of object is called typecasting. And there are two kind of typecasting: widening or the narrowing. So widening will be actually occur automatically, but yeah, in case of narrowing we have to declare explicitly. So let's see this in our example. So we have a class parent and there is a class child which is extending the parent class. Now we are creating the instance of child class. So here we are getting the instance of child class and then assigning the child instance into the parent instance. So this is called like widening. Here child is converted to the parent object, so that's why it is called widening, and there is no explicit cast record, it will happen automatically. But now like we have a instance of parent class and we are converting that parent class instance to the child class, then here we are narrowing the scope of that object. So that's why here we need to declare explicitly. So this is the typecasting. So the next question is marker interface. So what is the marker interface? So again it is a very important interview question. So marker interface are an empty interface, like there is no method or variable inside that interface. So that what is the purpose of marker interface? So like the purpose of marker interface, like it will provide some kind of special functionality. Means if our class is implementing that interface, then our class will be eligible for some kind of a special functionality, like uh, if we talk about the default Java given marker interface, serialization are clonable, and if our class is implementing the serializable interface, then class will be serializable. Or if we implement the clonable interface, we can create the clone of the our class. So that's why this is the special feature provided by the marker interface. So the next question is like how we can create a custom marker interface. So to creating a custom marker interface, here I have written a code snippet, like we are creating a state interface. So this is a simple marker interface. There is no variable or the method inside this interface, and then we have created a class session which is implementing our state interface, basically the marker interface. Inside this we have written a method object state, and inside that we are checking like whether our class, this class is implementing the marker interface or not. If it is implementing, then we can put some kind of special logic over here, like, oh, it is implementing the marker interface, so this feature can be implemented by this class, otherwise it can't implement that feature. So this is the way how to implement the marker interface. Let's move to the next question. So why char array is preferred over string to store the password? So again, this is a well-known interview question. Why? Because if we are storing the password into the string, so we know that the string reside in the string literal pool, and it remain in the string literal pool for a longer time. So someone can easily access that password via string literal pool. So that's why it's better to declare the password as a char array, because the life of char array is very little, and even after declaring the password we can clear the text, so it will not be accessible. Let's move to the next question. So what is the inner class in Java? So inner class are basically class defined inside the class are inner class, and the purpose of defining inner class to segregate a logic like tightly coupled with the outer class, and the inner class are widely used in case of event handling or the chat server. So these are the example. There are basically four type of inner class. One is nested inner class, second is method logo inner class, third is anonymous inner class, and fourth is the static nested class. So these are the type of the inner class. Moving to the next question. Explain nested inner class with example. So here we can see like nested inner class defined within the class and can access any private instance variable of outer class, and can't create a static method in a nested inner class. Like inside the nested inner class we can't create any kind of static method, because an inner class is implicit associated with an object of its outer class, so that's why we can't create any static variable inside this. So let's see the example. Here we have an outer class, inside that we are creating an inner class, simply inner class, and inside a inner class we have a method print. Now how we can access the inner class? So here you can see in the outer class we are creating like outer class dot inner class in equal to new outer class, as it is a nested inner class, so dot new inner class. So through this we can create an instance of inner class, and via this instance we can like access the method inside the inner class. So here we can see like how we can access the inner class. Let's move to the next question. Explain the method local inner class. So in the continuation of our inner class questions, so in this question we can see like how we can create the method local inner class. So method local inner class which is defined inside the method, and method local inner class can use only the final local variable of the method. This is the constraint for the method local inner class. So in this example we can see we have an outer class, inside that we have a method, and within the method we have the class inner class. The instance of method local inner class can be created inside the method only. So inside the method we have created the instance of like inner class equal to inner class, and via the instance of this we are simply accessing the method of the inner class. And for in the outer, here simply we are creating the instance of outer class and accessing this method. So in this way we can create the method local inner class. And let's move to the next question. So explain anonymous inner class with example. So anonymous inner class, basically we are creating an anonymous class via using new keyword and simply assign define the implementation of the method. So in this example we can see we have a class anonymous class, and inside the main class how we are creating the anonymous class, like anonymous class equal to new anonymous class, and inside that we are providing the like method, and simply we are calling the method via this variable name. So this is the way how we can create the anonymous inner class. Move to the next question, the static nested class. So simply it is a nested class, but with the static keyword, And when we are accessing this class, we need not to create the instance of inner class. Like we can access the directly with the name. So here you can see like outer class dot inner class, creating the instance of outer class, as inner class is a static instance, so that's why we are directly accessing like outer class dot inner class. So through this we can access the static nested class. Let's move to the next question. What is garbage collection? So garbage collection is the process of removing unused object from the memory to free up the space and make this space available for the Java virtual machine. The next point is like when an object is no longer in use or is pointing to null, then that object is will be eligible for the garbage collection. So here we can see in this example, like we have created two object, test main 1 and test main 2, and then we are uh, putting null for these two objects. So after the line number 6, these two objects will be eligible for the garbage collection. So that's about the garbage collection. Moving to the next question. So can we force to garbage collection? So no, we can't force to garbage collection. Like this is the activity done by the JVM. JVM will take care of the garbage collection. Whenever the object is eligible for the garbage collection, JVM is monitoring all the object, and then it will perform the garbage collection. Yeah, but we don't have any control on the garbage collection. Yeah, but we have like a GC method, system or GC method. Using this method, we can ask JVM for the garbage collection. But again, like when the garbage collection will happen, we are not sure about that. And then we are putting a test main object equal to null, and after that we are calling system.gc. So we are saying that to the JVM that we are eligible for the garbage collection, but again the JVM will do the garbage collection automatically, and there is no predefined time or predefined way when it will happen. So move to the next question. What is the user's finalize keyword, like finalize method? So we already discussed in the previous difference between final, finally and finalize, like what is the finalize method. So here we can see with the example. So finalize method get called before the object gets garbage collected. So like within the class, whenever the object is getting garbage collected, so just before the garbage collection, finalize method will call. So the benefit of this method, like we can put some logic in the finalize method just before the object garbage collector. Like if our object is using any kind of external resources, so in the finalize method, what we can do, we can release those resources. That kind of logic you can put here. So in this example, you can see like we are create simple an object, and we are calling the system.gc, and inside that, like we are overriding this method protected void finalize, and here we are simply printing the garbage collected. So when we run this code, so the method finalize will automatically called, and we can see in the console garbage collected will be printed. Although here we can see like we are not calling the finalize method anywhere, so this will be get called automatically by the JVM. So this is the use of finalize method. Let's move to the next question. So what is young generation and old generation? So whenever the object are created, they reside in the generation, like young generation and the old generation. So in newly created object are resides in the young generation. Like whenever we are creating an object, it will be in the young generation, and in young generation a minor GC occur infrequently, and like if a object reside in the young generation for a long time, then it will move to the old generation. So here you can see like most of the objects become unreachable soon. These objects are created in the young generation, and a minor GC has occurred in young generation as these objects destroyed in a short time. Like these objects destroyed in a short time, that's why a minor GC occurred in the young generation. And the old generations, the object who survived from the young generation are moved to the old generation. It is a larger than the young generation as it is bigger in size, and the GC occurs less frequently than in the young generation, and a major GC or a full GC has occurred in the old generation. So this is the difference between young generation and the old generation. So let's move to the next question. Position of young generation. So the composition of young generation are there basically three kind of space: one hidden space and two survivor space. So one hidden space is like here you can see the order of execution process of these species as below. So the majority of newly created objects are reside are located in the hidden space. So whenever we are creating a new object or variable, it will be in the hidden space, and the object which are survived in GC of hidden space are moved to one of the survivor space. Like for a frequent GC will occur in the hidden space, and after multiple survival, if the object survive in the hidden space, it will be moved to the survivor space. And the sequence, like when one survivor space will full, then the object will be moved to the second survivor space. So like once the survivor space is full, surviving object are moved to the another survivor space. And the fourth point is like the object that survived these steps that have been repeated a number of times are moved to the old generation. So like when object move to old generation, if they are uh, repeated number of times, like if they survived in the survival space after the repeating of the GC number of times, then they will be moved to the old generation. So the next question is what are the memory allocation techniques? So how the memory allocated in GC? So basically there are two way: bump the pointer and thread local allocation buffer. So the bump the pointer is basically maintain a pointer in the hidden space. So here you can see like in this technique tracks the last object allocated on the top of hidden space. If there is an object created afterwards, it checks only if the size of object is suitable for the hidden space. Like it's again check the size of, like it should not be the overflow situation. So first it will check the size, and then if it seems to be right, it will be placed in the hidden space, and the new object goes on the top. Again always the new object goes on the top. So when new object are created, only the lastly added object needs to be checked. So we are maintaining a pointer to the lastly added object. So that's why whenever a new object comes, we simply replace the pointer and put the newly created object onto the top, so which allow much faster memory allocation. However, it is different story if we consider a multi-thread environment. So there will be constraint on this technique. Like for the multi-thread environment, this will not work. It is not thread safe. So for the multi-thread environment, we have a technique thread local allocation buffer. Like for in the TLab solution for the multi-thread environment, so this allows each thread to have a small portion of hidden space. So here each thread can only access their own TLab, like all the thread have their own small portion of memory, and they can perform their work on their portion of memory. So this is about the memory allocation technique.